You asked for it, the herd demanded it, and now it's finally here. Part 2 of the strongest Space Marines in each chapter. You absolute mad lads smashed the like and comment goal in a single day. One fucking day. I was so blown away. Of course, I had to deliver the sequel. As promised, today we're diving into even more chapters that you guys voted for, to figure out who truly deserves the title of the strongest Marine in each chapter. Same rules as before, only Marines that can still be considered human count. So that means Psychers are totally fair game, but no Demons, Demon Princes, or Dreadnoughts. And we're sticking exclusively to only 40k era Marines, unless someone somehow survived the last 10,000 years and is still out there wrecking face in the current setting. The chapters we'll be covering in this glorious part 2 are the Scythes of the Emperor's Spears, Sons of Medusa, Iron Knights, Red Scorpions, Executioners, Black Dragons, White Consuls, Dark Hunters, Sons of Sanguinius, Marines Malevolent, Mantis Warriors, Novamarines, Mortifactors, Iron Snakes, Dark Krakens, Silver Skulls, and the Gene-Enhanced Marine, Alpha Primus. Yeah, this lineup is kinda stacked. Some of these chapters have absolute legends at the helm, and others are basically just expensive cannon fodder with a cool paint job. After this, we'll move on to the champions from the Chaos Warbands, and then finally rank them all to decide who is the single strongest Space Marine from the 40k setting.
Let's go!
Now for this video specifically, I'm going to add a special rule. Even if a Marine recently died in combat or otherwise, they'll still be included in this video. Because honestly, some of their greatest feats involve going out in the most badass ways possible. And since I know part 2 didn't include all of your favorite chapters, since there's way too many to count, here's a new challenge for the herd. If this video hits 2,000 likes and 500 comments in 1 week, I'll make a part 3 covering even more chapters. Oh boy, I already feel like I'm going to regret that one. So once again, let's dolphin dive straight into the cow hole. Grab your donuts, milk, and your comfiest blanket. We're starting part 2 off with the Scythes of the Emperor, the galaxy's newly homeless Marines. It's become a tradition at this point, guys. Say it with me. It's power scaling time.
Spare change. Spare change, ma'am.
The Scythes of the Emperor are one of the more famous Ultramarine successors, created during the third founding from the remnants of the Ultramarines' 199th Company. Honored for their valor during the Battle of Sotha during the Horus Heresy, they inherited the Ultramarines' codex-based structure but carried their own heraldry, black armor with yellow breastplates and crossed scythes as their chapter symbol. Since then, they've fought in major engagements like the Corinth Crusade and the Damocles Gulf, before facing their greatest trial, High Fleet Kraken. The Tyranids swarmed their homeworld of Sofa, leaving the chapter all but destroyed. Only a few survivors escaped to continue the fight, battling Tyranids in the shadows until the Ultima Founding restored them with Primaris reinforcements. As a chapter, they're pretty gosh darn popular, but most of their known Space Marines are dead. This actually works to our advantage, because it lets us lean on my already deceased Marines rule when selecting champions. It's like I saw this coming or something.
Sometimes my genius is... it's almost frightening.
So let's now take a look at the Scythes champions. First is Sergeant Marek Angeloi. Second is Agaitis, captain of the 2nd Company. Third is Sergeant Ramos. And finally, our 4th candidate is Manciris Thracian, formerly a captain of the 3rd Company, master of the arsenal, and recently elevated to chapter master. Let's start with Marek Angeloi. Angeloi is a sergeant of the Scythes of the Emperor's 4th Company during the fall of Sofa. He was a natural leader even in the most chaotic of times. Angeloi's 2 biggest feats are leading the purge of Phyrus against the Tyranid forces and rescuing a squad mate from a lictor in a high-risk close-quarters engagement. I will also add that since some chapters lack truly notable individual Marines, survivability and ability to endure extreme situations will also be especially considered when evaluating feats. Angeloi's ability to survive both the Tyranid onslaught and the challenges of facing a lictor make him a prime candidate under this category. Up next is Agaitis, captain of the 2nd Company of the Scythes of the Emperor. His greatest feat, and sadly his final act, came during a mission during the Giant's Coffin on Mural Prime, where the 2nd Company was ambushed by Tyranid Biotitans and other horrors from a crashed hive ship. Mortally wounded, he received the Emperor's Peace from an apothecary. His leadership and ability to endure multiple engagements against overwhelming Tyranid forces mark him as a steadfast and notable warrior from this chapter. Third is Sergeant Ramos, who led a Space Marine squad of the Scythes of the Emperor in a daring attempt to apprehend the first hive ship approaching Sotha. Boarding the vessel via torpedo insertion, his squad was almost entirely wiped out by the Tyranid occupants, leaving only Ramos and brother Tobias alive. Despite overwhelming odds, Ramos managed to cripple the hive ship and escape, drifting until he was recovered by the Ultramarines long after Sofa's fall. Ramos bore the scars of centuries of unrelenting war, with 3 service studs marking his experience. For those who don't know, 3 service studs means he has served for 3 centuries. His survival, combined with his ability to strike a decisive blow against a Tyranid vessel while surviving, shows his durability and combat skill. And finally, we have Mansirius Thracian, who served as captain of the 3rd Company and master of the arsenal before inheriting the mantle of chapter master. During Hive Fleet Kraken's devastating assault on Sofa, Thracian led 6 companies in a desperate defense of the chapter's homeworld. Though the Tyranids ultimately overran Sofa, he orchestrated a disciplined fighting retreat that preserved the remaining forces and civilians, ensuring the survival of the chapter despite near total annihilation. His crowning achievement came later, during an expedition to Sofa, where he personally slew the Genestealer Patriarch that had originally led the Hive Fleet assault, sacrificing his own life in the process. So who would be the strongest from this chapter? Looking at the Scythes of the Emperor's candidates, their greatest feats really highlight different kinds of prowess. Marek Angeloi earned his place in legend by saving a comrade from the clutches of a lictor during a deadly mission. Agaitis faced overwhelming odds against the Tyranids, cutting down countless Xenos before ultimately succumbing to his injuries. Sergeant Ramos managed to cripple a hive ship and survive, becoming one of the only 2 Marines to escape that harrowing encounter. And finally, Mansirius Thracian achieved the chapter's most iconic feat, taking on and slaying a Genestealer Patriarch in single combat, though at the cost of his own life. Even with all of his experience, I think we can confidently eliminate Agaitis. His heroism, while impressive, ended with him falling to overwhelming Tyranid forces. Ramos also takes a step back, crippling a hive ship and surviving is nothing to scoff at, but it's hard to top a single combat victory against a Genestealer Patriarch or a Lictor. That leaves us with Marek Angeloi and Mansirius Thracian. And it really comes down to the matchup, a Lictor versus a Genestealer Patriarch. A Lictor is a deadly ambush predator, incredibly fast and lethal in close quarters, but it's still a minor Tyranid compared to a Patriarch. A Genestealer Patriarch is a psychic and physical powerhouse able to control entire cults of Gene Brood and engage multiple Space Marines at once. In raw threat level, strength, and sheer combat capability, the Patriarch towers over the Lictor, making Thracian's feat the far more impressive of the 2. Which means our first champion to crown is the late Mansirius Thracian, slayer of the Genestealer Patriarch, and well, a very deceased corpse at the moment. Oof. Next up are the Emperor's Spears. The Emperor's Spears are a chapter of the 26th Founding, descended from the Ultramarines and sworn to guard the remote and war-torn region of Ilara's Vale. Since the opening of the Great Rift, they have stood at the edge of survival. From their homeworld of Nemeton, the rift looms visible in the skies, its corruption bleeding across the Vale. Cut off and forgotten, the Spears endured in isolation, becoming a tribal and warlord chapter, brutal survivors forged by endless war. And while they aren't nearly as broken as their Ultramarine forebears, they still boast a few candidates worth considering today. First is Brayak, the Primaris Lord of the Third Host. Second is Arukatas, the Sword Bearer, High King of the chapter. Third is Vadhand, who was once a Lieutenant Commander of the Mentors chapter, but now serves the Emperor's Spears. And finally, our fourth candidate is Ducarius, the Druid Librarian, whose psychic might makes him a deadly force in his own right. We'll start with Brayak, one of the cooler looking characters. I mean, look at that spear, fellas. Brayak of the Emperor's Spears hails from the Vargans tribe of Nemeton. a hardened Primaris lord who has led his chapter's third warhost through endless war of Ilara's Vale. He's fought the Ecclesiarchy across the stars, clashed with traitors, and even endured the Imperium's cold suspicion of his chapter's loyalty. But his greatest feat came when he and former member of the Mentor's chapter, Vadhan, fought and defeated a Calidus assassin after the assassin had assassinated Celestial Alliance chapter master Ikeni Dubaku. Yes, I know I said assassin a gazillion times right there. So of course, to truly appreciate this feat, we need to dive down a power scale cow hole and ask, just how powerful is a Calidus assassin? To put it into the most simple terms, a Calidus assassin is a walking nightmare, a master of deception, and a literal living weapon. Their greatest asset is the drug polymorphine, which rewrites their very biology, allowing them to become anyone or anything. With this, they can impersonate imperial governors, heretic prophets, or even alien hybrids. This shape-shifting mastery makes them perfect infiltrators, but the Calidus assassins are far more than spies. When the killing blow comes, it's delivered by a predator engineered to slaughter with terrifying precision. They're trained in martial arts that eclipse even the transhuman might of an Astartes. In the book Soul Hunter, Talos, a veteran Night Lord, admitted a weakened Calidus would still kill him before his heart beat twice. Their arsenal is filled with deadly weapons. Phase swords that cut through armor, neural shredders that burn minds into ash, poison blades, digital weapons, and even psychological terror tactics like the infamous Death Car. They operate above the level of a Space Marine, blending into shadows and striking with speed that Astartes simply can't match. And that's what makes Brayak's accomplishment so damn impressive. He wasn't facing just some standard heretic or chaos marine. He was reacting to a Calidus assassin, a creature whose entire existence is optimized for killing beyond the capabilities of a normal Space Marine. Speed, skill, stealth, lethal precision, all designed to overwhelm even the most disciplined warriors. Yet, even though he was assisted in a quick fight, it's still quite a feat that Brayak was able to impale the assassin as Vadhan's vortex grenade sucked it into the warp. Next we have Arukatas, the sword bearer, High King of the chapter. Arukatas is essentially the chapter master of the Emperor's Spears, and one of his most notable recorded acts was overturning the ancient vow of Lord Tristans, who had sworn never to set foot on Macragge again after the bitter Yukari insurrection. Arukatas judged the oath to be one of spite and fire, a rash promise born in the heat of battle rather than a sacred bond. By doing so, he attempted to ease tensions between the Spears and the Ultramarine founders. Though in truth, the damage was already done. Even with the High King's ruling, relations between the two chapters never fully healed and little affection remains between them. And that's about it.
What?
This is the first entry where we run into a Space Marine leader with literally no real feats beyond a political decision. No battles, no duels, and no last stands. Just one moment of diplomacy and a strained family drama with the Smurfs. It sucks that this happened so early on in the video, but let me tell ya, this is going to become a recurring problem. A lot of obscure chapters have cool names, cooler colors, but zero actual lore to scale feats from. Our third candidate is Vadhan. Once Lieutenant Commander of the Mentors, he is now a Primaris of the Emperor's Spears' third warhost. Sent across the rift as an emissary to the Spears and Celestial Alliance, he carried suspicion. His mentor colors too close to the now lost and corrupted Star Scorpions. The Spears branded him an outsider, a false Scorpion, a name that would stick. Vadhan's greatest feat came when he stood beside Lord Brayak to help him bring down a Calidus assassin, the same infiltrator who assassinated Celestial Alliance chapter master Ikeni Dubaku. That sounds impressive, but if we're being so real, all Vadhan really did was chase the assassin down and hurl a vortex grenade at it. Beyond that moment, most of his story is limited to being captured and tortured by the Pure, who are a chaos warband formerly known as the Star Scorpions. He endured unspeakable torment at the hands of their chaos lord, Nar Khazar, his body mutilated beyond repair, yet he refused to break or betray his chapter's secrets. So yeah, from what we've got, I can sum up Vadhan like this. He's got an iron will against the torture stick, and an absolute cannon for an arm with that vortex grenade. Honestly, this guy should be playing in the MLB. Our fourth and final candidate is Ducaris, the Druid Librarian. And yes, I gotta admit he only made the list because his brother died of tuberculosis. I'm not kidding. Look, it literally says tuberculosis, which I'll be honest is a sentence I never thought I'd say in a Warhammer 40K video. Drukaris is a powerful psyker, with his abilities mainly centered around infiltrating enemy mines and interrogating prisoners. But once again, he doesn't really have any combat feats outside of that, which makes him seem more of an interrogator librarian than a great combat psyker. So let's line up what we've got from the Emperor's Spears. A chapter master with no feats worth mentioning, not exactly inspiring confidence. A druid librarian whose biggest flex is probing mines, basically the Spear's psychic HR rep. A Primaris Marine who, yes, endured torture, but whose standout moment is proving he's got a major league level arm with that Vortex grenade. And finally, a warrior who reacted fast enough to spear a Calidus assassin, one of the deadliest killers the Imperium can field. It's a pretty obvious pick here, lads. The crown belongs to Brayak. He's the only one with a feat that doesn't read like an HR case file or a sports stat. When your resume says, killed a Calidus assassin, that's an instant W. So yeah, Brayak walks away with this one. The rest of the spears might have spirit, but when your competition is a chapter master with no feats, a psychic HR manager, and a guy whose biggest talent is throwing grenades, the dude who speared a Calidus assassin is the clear MVP. Now let's move on from the tribal, half-forgotten warriors of Ilara's Vale to a very different breed of Space Marine. The cold, cybernetic, and sometimes outright terrifying Sons of Medusa. Though they are successors of the first founding Iron Hands chapter, the Sons of Medusa are highly unusual among the Adeptus Astartes in that they were not created by conventional means. Their origins lie in the Moray Schism, a dark chapter in the history of the cult Mechanicus. On the Forge World of Moray, a triad of tech mystics enshrined within the colossal data looms claimed to have discerned predictive patterns with the micro-fluctuations of the Astronomicon's beacon. These so-called patterns were believed to carry the words of the Omnissiah, revealing the future and humanity's destiny. The resulting divide split the Iron Hands into warring factions, and the exiled dissidents eventually coalesced into a fleet-based branch of the chapter. Over time, they grew in strength, earning formal acknowledgement from the High Lords of Terra, complete with their own heraldry. Forged in strife, the Sons of Medusa inherited their founder's obsession with technological perfection and a disdain for weakness, making them a uniquely formidable chapter. Unfortunately, when examining the lore of the Sons of Medusa, only one figure truly stands out as a candidate for our champion: Iron Thane Vaelund Cawl. Now remember guys, I'm simply a cow, so if I got any of these wrong, it's not my fault, it's only my cow-sized brain. If you guys have any suggestions for better warriors or better placements, let me know down in the comments. Iron Thane Vaelund Cawl, master of the Atropes war clan, serves as both his clan's weaponsmith and war leader. A fanatical follower of the Morian sect of the cult Mechanicus, his largely cybernetic body grants him strength and endurance far beyond even a standard Astartes. During the Babdab War, his greatest feat came during a teleport assault on the orbital fortress of Sentinel Sigma, where he led the Atropes Terminators through multiple layers of heavily fortified strongholds filled with traitor marines to sever the 5-meter thick plasma couplings powering the fortress's guns. A remarkable display of leadership and skill. But I won't lie to my herd, that's about it for feats for this guy. It's a harsh reality, but for the first time in this video, a chapter doesn't give us the wealth of individual champions to pick from. Cawl is the sole candidate, and even that comes down to a mix of leadership, tech mastery, and battlefield accomplishments rather than flashy single combat heroics. This is a reminder that not every chapter has its lore-heavy superstars. With that, we move onwards to the next chapter in our hunt for champions, the Iron Knights. The Iron Knights are a successor chapter of the Imperial Fist, founded prior to the Fourth Founding. Known for their crusading spirit and disciplined warfare, they stand out from their parent chapter in one key area: the cultivation of elite duelists. While the Imperial Fists we covered in the last video had hardly any standout candidates, which made me want to throw myself off a 50-story building, the Iron Knights follow in the tradition of Sigismund, emphasizing personal martial prowess and the art of the duel. Over the centuries, this focus has produced some of the most formidable duelists among the Adeptus Astartes, capable of feats that far exceed what might be expected from a chapter of their size. Among their most notable warriors are Commander Godendog, Morningstar, Chapter Champion Hervald Strom, and Captain Cadulin, a former company champion. These Marines exemplify the Iron Knight's dedication to martial excellence and stand as prime candidates for acknowledgement among the chapter's greatest warriors. First up is Godendog Morningstar, Commander of the Iron Knights, aptly named Morningstar for his signature pair of Morningstar weapons. Yes, this guy literally dual wields a pair of fucking Morningstars. What a goddamn legend.
Oh my god, he's so goddamn cool!
Known for his respect and compassion towards mortals, Godendog's greatest feat came on Manet, where he led his squad through a tower overrun by demonettes after a rogue psyker opened a warp rift. Godendog reached the upper floors, slew the rogue psyker, and sealed the portal, banishing the demon threat. Next is Hervald Strom, who is legendary as the only chapter champion to win 2 consecutive victories at the Centennial Feast of Blades, the 812th and the 813th. No other chapter and no other warrior has ever managed back-to-back wins. His second victory was even more impressive considering he fought through serious wounds sustained during the Vaucluse Crusade. Since the Iron Knights already have 2 candidates on our list who have triumphed at the Feast of Blades, it's worth diving into what this achievement actually means and attempting to power scale their combat prowess based on it. The Feast of Blades occurs every century and is between Space Marine chapters, descending from the Primarch Rogel Dorn. First held shortly after the founding of the successor chapters, its purpose is twofolded: to foster brotherhood between the Imperial Fists and their successors, and to commemorate the losses endured during the Iron Cage campaign against the Iron Warriors. Each chapter sends a chosen champion, usually one of their finest company champions, to prove their skill in ritualized combat. Being selected is itself a mark of prestige, often indicating future advancement within the chapter. But the feast is far from a simple tournament. The arena itself is an interpretation of the Iron Cage, constantly changing between rounds and even during matches, forcing competitors to contend with unpredictable obstacles as well as their fellow champions. 12 chapters typically participate, meaning a champion must fight through 3 to 4 opponents to claim victory. Matches can involve paralyzing toxins, chain weapons, duels in darkness, or other hazardous variations depending on the hosting chapter. Winners are recorded on the tablets of the Chamber of Swords and awarded the Dorn's Blade. But winning is more than just winning a cool sword. It's a testament to endurance, adaptability, and martial supremacy. A champion must navigate a constantly shifting arena, overcome deadly environmental hazards, and outfight multiple elite opponents while adhering to ritualized rules of the contest. In practical terms, a champion who wins the Feast of Blades is likely capable of taking on several highly trained Space Marines at once, maintaining dominance over prolonged close quarters combat, and exploiting both terrain and opponent weaknesses to lethal effect. These are elite warriors tested under some of the most grueling conditions the Imperium can devise. So you can see why Hervald Strom's achievement is particularly remarkable. Winning 2 consecutive Feasts of Blades, the 812th and 813th, demonstrates an extraordinary level of consistency and combat skill. No other Space Marine in the history of the Feast of Blades has managed to repeat such a feat, highlighting just how incredibly difficult it truly is. Yet Strom still overcame every obstacle and opponent, cementing his status as one of the most formidable duelists in the Imperium. Our third and final candidate is Cadulin, a captain and former company champion of the Iron Knights chapter. Cadulin rose to the position of company champion after his predecessor was slain by a Dark Elder Slaver Queen. Over the centuries, he became renowned for his swordsmanship, earning the title Saint of Blades, and earning the respect of every chapter sending warriors to the ritual Feast of Blades. Cadulin represented the Iron Knights at the Feast of Blades 3 times, winning on his first entry, narrowly losing on the second, and claiming victory a second time on his third appearance, placing him alongside his own brother, Hervald Strom, as one of the very few Space Marines to achieve such a feat. Cadulin later rose to captain, commanding the 4th Company with distinction for nearly a century. On Omeras, he faced the Dark Elder Archon, Cargill. With his command squad and company champion engaged elsewhere, Cadulin fought single-handedly against the Archon and a dozen incubi. Despite his skill, he was overwhelmed and was last seen being carried into a webway portal. While in captivity, Cadulin was forced into the witch arenas of Kamun-Ra, the Dark City, where he dueled Lilith Hesbrax for over 6 hours. And even though he would fall in combat to the Dark Elder champion, he would manage to land a cut across her midriff, cementing him as easily one of the best duelists in the 40k setting. So who's the strongest Iron Knight? Cause oh my gosh, we have a chapter with not 1, not 2, but 3 absolute legends. Let's go over their best feats. Golden Dog Morningstar carved through a horde of demonettes, slew a rogue psyker, and closed a warp rift portal. Hervald Strom won 2 consecutive Feasts of Blades, the 812th and 813th iterations, even overcoming severe injuries during the latter. And Cadulin, a captain and former company champion, not only won 2 Feasts of Blades, but also fought an Archon, a dozen incubi, and later dueled Lilith Hesbrax in Kamun-Ra for 6 straight hours, even managing to wound her. All I've gotta say is wow. Just wow. Easily some of the most top-notch fellas we have scaled so far in this video. But to truly decide who reigns supreme among the Iron Knights, we need to quickly gauge just how strong Lilith Hesbrax is. Lilith Hesbrax, the infamous Queen of Knives, is a nightmare in combat. Her speed, reflexes, and precision are nearly unmatched, and her body itself is a weapon. Barbed hair, sharpened talons, and enhanced muscles allow her to strike with lightning-fast flurries that can overwhelm even the most seasoned opponents. Combining supernatural ability with mastery of witch weapons like impalers and shard nets, she dances around foes, exploiting openings with deadly efficiency. Her record speaks for itself. She has defeated champions like Yfrane and several other notable fighters across the galaxy. Based on her feats, it's reasonable to place her at or even slightly above Custodes tier in terms of combat ability. Seeing that Cadulin fought for 6 grueling hours against Lilith Hesbrax and even managed to wound her, cements his status as the strongest Space Marine from the Iron Knights chapter. Add to that his 2 Feasts of Blade victories, his last stand against a Dark Elder Archon alongside a dozen incubi, and it's clear that Cadulin belongs among the greatest duelists in the Imperium, on par with legends like Lucius, Karn, Grimnar, Corsaro Khan, and even Cato Sicarius. He may be dead, but his feats endure as a testament to his extraordinary dueling capabilities. I mean, come on guys, who the hell has fought Lilith Hesbrax and wounded her? This guy came out of nowhere and honestly has surprised me so goddamn much. Hell yeah, the Iron Knights chapter are sick as hell. Shout out to whoever picked them. I'm serious, you're the best. I'm so happy I learned about this chapter. Next up, we move on to the Red Scorpions, whose disciplined warriors and tactical expertise make them a great comparison to the Iron Knight's martial prowess. The Red Scorpions are a mysterious and secretive Space Marine chapter with origins lost to history. Their founding is unknown, and no records remain detailing the chapter's beginnings. This secrecy has caused some within the Imperium to question their loyalties, as the chapter holds itself answerable solely to the Emperor. Despite the secrecy, the Red Scorpions have a long record of service spanning at least 5,000 years, carrying out thousands of relief missions and battlefield operations wherever needed. Some of these engagements include the Siege of Helios, the Second Agastane Crusade, the Orden Crusade, Babdab War, and the Third War for Armageddon. Their campaigns often demonstrate a rigorous adherence to the Codex Astartes Doctrine, particularly in boarding actions and fleet defense, reflecting a discipline that sets them apart from far more unorthodox chapters. The Red Scorpions have also engaged Hive Fleet Kraken, Orc Wogs, and Eldar forces, proving themselves capable across a broad spectrum of warfare. For the purposes of evaluating the Red Scorpion's most notable warriors, we will not be including Carib Cullen, the former chapter master. While Cullen is a fan favorite, especially for his legendary feat of slaying the Tyranid Hive Beast, known as the Great Beast of Sarum, he ultimately ended up in a dreadnought. Since our focus is strictly on Astartes in their living form, he sadly falls outside the scope here. Still, I figured it was only fair to give him an honorable mention, cause I gotta respect the fan favorite. Right? Right, guys?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Please, 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 don't come to my house and milk me. Please, I'm begging you. So the actual candidates for the Red Scorpions chapter are Severin Loth, the Red Scorpions chief librarian, and one of the most formidable psychers amongst the Adeptus Astartes. Cassan Sabias, a veteran captain and one of the chapter's 2 de facto masters, and Surae Karagon, the ancient Invigilus and the other leader who shares the mantle of chapter master. We're starting with Cassus Sabias this time around, because sometimes you just gotta shake things up. He is the captain of the Red Scorpions, and following the internment of Carib Colon into a dreadnought, rose to become one of the chapter's 2 de facto leaders alongside Surae Karagon. Though reluctant to take command, his brothers acknowledged his worth, making him Lord Regent of the chapter. Unlike some of his peers, Sabias does not have a catalog of legendary single combat feats to his name. Instead, his strength lies in leadership and strategy. When the Red Scorpions were on the brink of annihilation by Hive Fleet Kraken, it was Sabias who executed a flawless withdrawal. By coordinating precise orbital strikes while disengaging from the swarm, a maneuver many would call impossible, he saved the chapter from destruction. Time and again, Sabias has led from the front, protecting his warriors, inspiring them to endure, and preserving the Red Scorpion's future. Our next candidate is Severin Loth, who is regarded as one of the most powerful psychers in the entire Imperium, his reputation extending far beyond the Red Scorpion's chapter. Unlike many librarians who preferred seclusion and meditation, Loth balanced his immense psychic might with direct martial prowess, often testing himself against his brothers in combat and earning a reputation as both a scholar of the arcane and a relentless warrior. His presence struck fear in enemy sorcerers and warlocks who rarely survived crossing blades or wills with him. His legend was cemented during the Babdab War, most notably in the aftermath of the betrayal at Grief. When Lord Commander Varan Ortis was slain, it was Severin Loth who led a desperate counterattack to recover his fallen master's body. Using both assault rams and teleporter strikes, he spearheaded the Red Scorpion's assault within a collapsing asteroid station, while enemy raiders and Huron's astral claws pressed the attack. Even as an enemy vessel, crippled and aflame, crashed into the station and triggered a catastrophic chain reaction that tore the installation apart, Loth refused to abandon the mission. Against all odds, he successfully retrieved Ortis' remains, preserving the honor of his chapter amid the chaos. And our third and final candidate is Surae Karagon, who is the Red Scorpion's ancient Invigilus and since the fall of Carib Colon, has risen to become one of the 2 de facto chapter masters of the Red Scorpions alongside Cassan Sabias. As ancient Invigilus, Karagon holds a rare and weighty position within the chapter, serving as both the guardian of its purity and the quiet check upon the Lord Regent's authority. His greatest feat came during the cleansing of the Genestealer cults on Lamarno 7. In the brutal fighting across the Hive City, Karagon faced the Patriarch of the cult itself in single combat, a foe whose psychic might, monstrous strength, and unnatural speed had slain countless Astartes across the Imperium. Against this apex predator of the Tyranid breed, Karagon defeated the Patriarch in single combat. And if you all remember earlier in the video, Size of the Emperor, Mansirius Thracian, fell in combat defeating one, and Karagon did it without having it cost his life. That's pretty damn impressive, folks. This chapter is surprisingly straightforward. It has to be Surae Karagon. Cassan Sabias may be an excellent leader, and Severin Loth is supposedly one of the most powerful psychers in the Imperium, but even then, his most renowned accomplishment boils down to recovering his master's body during the chaos of the betrayal at Grief. No doubt he carved his way through traitor marines to achieve that, but if his power was truly unmatched, perhaps he could have prevented the station's destruction altogether, or even confronted Lord Huron directly. By contrast, Karagon's triumph over a Genestealer Patriarch, a feat of raw martial might and willpower, firmly cements him as the Red Scorpion's greatest warrior. Thus, Surae Karagon will represent the Red Scorpions chapter in the final ranking. Now with these red boys settled, it's time to move on to the Executioners. The Executioners are a Space Marine chapter descended from the Imperial Fists and are officially acknowledged as the third founding. Known for their brutal efficiency and unrelenting dedication to eliminating threats to the Imperium, the Executioners have developed a feral and savage reputation over the millennium, favoring direct action, relentless aggression, and a warrior culture steeped in autism and ancestor worship. They adhere to the Codex Astartes in form, but interpret it with deadly flexibility, often allowing captains a degree of autonomy that can lead to bloody contests for leadership. Over their long history, the Executioners have fought in countless engagements, from defending Terra during the War of the Beast to their controversial role in the Baghdad War, and through their century-long pennant crusade, earning renown for their endurance, ferocity, and tactical cunning. With the chapter's ferocity, versatility, and most importantly, artistic methods established, we now turn to their most notable warriors, the candidates who could claim the title of the Executioner's greatest warrior. First is Warlord Janu Marit. Second is Thulsa Kane, High Chaplain and Lord Speaker of the Dead. And our third and final candidate is Argash Hakon, High Executioner. We're starting with Janu Marit. Janu Marit, warlord of the Executioner's 6th Company, was renowned for his unwavering courage and formidable combat prowess. During a battle on Belvasa, he faced Lebius Sakar, a Chaos Lord of Nurgle. Though Marut ultimately fell in this duel, he endured the full effects of Sakar's Nurgle-gifted plague and still personally slew the Chaos Lord, displaying extraordinary durability and determination in the face of a corrupting death-dealing force. Next is Thulsa Kane, the one-eyed High Chaplain of the Executioners, who also holds the title of Lord Speaker of the Dead, making him a singular chronicler and spiritual guide of the chapter. Renowned for his scornful wit and fearsome martial skill, Kane is affectionately or perhaps warily nicknamed Old Knight by his battle brothers, which is a pretty goddamn cool nickname if I don't say so myself. Few would dare cross him, and even fewer would survive the wrath of this ancient warrior, whose grim wisdom spans the full breadth of the Executioner's bloody history. His mind is as sharp as his mace, and over centuries of service, Kane has taken countless heads from his enemies, leaving a trail of dead and respect in his wake. One of Kane's most notable feats occurred during the Battle of Karen Deep in 899 M41, when the Executioner's 2nd Company was ambushed on a frontier world in the Dead Worlds near the Veiled region. Surrounded and outnumbered by a relentless metallic foe, Kane led a desperate counter-assault, personally confronting the enemy leader in a titanic clash. The battle left Kane's mace shattered and his right eye withered, yet he ultimately slew the undying foe. While the reports only describe the enemy as an undying metallic creature, it's very plausible that Kane personally slew a Necron Lord, a feat that would place him among the most formidable combatants in the galaxy. And finally, we have Argash Hakon, who serves as the current High Executioner of the Executioner's chapter. You know what I just noticed? These guys are kind of the same as the Space Wolves. They love to repeat words. For these guys, it's the word Executioners. Oh my god, I feel like I've said it a gazillion times so far. Despite his prestigious rank, Hakon's personal feats are pretty sparse, I'm not gonna lie, leaving fans, including myself, a longtime admirer of Big Daddy Fafnir Rann, wanting so goddamn more that it makes you want to sit on the ground and cry. What we do know is that Hakon likely earned his office through the bloody duels by which the Executioners select their High Executioner, which at least places him above a regular Marine in terms of martial prowess. But beyond that, the details of this guy are very vague. He wields the Life Taker, a massive black-bladed power axe passed down through successive High Executioners, serving as both a weapon and a symbol of command. It's undeniably a cool-looking axe, but we have no idea if it possesses any special properties or hidden powers. So, pretty lame by Games Workshop. Give this guy some more lore, come on. His axe is named Life Taker, and he looks so goddamn cool, but what? Once again, no lore or feats. Fafnir Rann would be so ashamed. Before moving on, let's quickly scale a Necron Lord and a Chaos Sorcerer. Necron Lords are ancient, soulless beings commanding legions of Necron warriors. They are masters of combat, wielding devastating weapons like a war scythe, and often backed by resurrection orbs that lets them return from death. Their advanced technology make them incredibly dangerous on the battlefield. And then, on the other hand, we have a Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgle, who are powerful psychers who can channel the gifts of their patron. They can unleash diseases, curses, and warp sorcery, and their durability is enhanced by Nurgle's blessings, allowing them to endure otherwise fatal hardships. So with that covered, who is the strongest executioner? We can start by eliminating Huron, the High Executioner. He simply doesn't have any feats, and I can't really make him the strongest Marine from this chapter based on assumption alone. So that leaves Thusulkane and Janu Marut. Both Thusulkane and Janu Marut achieved incredible feats, but using my Cawl logic, Kane's victory over the Necron Lord stands out amongst the Executioner's chapter. And Necron Lord's ability to resurrect combined with their advanced tech makes them a terrifying opponent. And Kane's triumph over one, while severely wounded, demonstrates extraordinary prowess. In contrast, Marut's defeat of the Chaos Lord is undeniably impressive, but he paid the ultimate price, meaning he's dead. While Chaos Sorcerers scale well beyond normal Space Marines, a Necron Lord's technology and sheer durability put it a tier above even potent warp users. Therefore, for the Executioner's chapter, Thusulkane's victory over the Necron Lord cements his status as the mightiest amongst their chapter. Completely off topic, this chapter continues the trend of having complete bums at Chapter Master. I thought these guys were supposed to be legends that slay powerful traders and Xenos alike, but so far, we've only had one Chapter Master on this list. And no, I'm not counting Sire Kerrigan, since it does not fit my narrative I'm trying to establish here. Kinda makes me want to make a video on how many Chapter Masters are actually flops in the narrative. I bet it's over 20, guys. I feel like it really is. Chapter Masters in the lore are supposed to be so gosh darn powerful, but in my eyes, they're complete bums. So with that angry rant out of the way, let's do a quick stats check. We have 1 Chapter Master, 1 War Clan Master, 3 Captains, and 1 Chaplain. Decent scoring so far, decent scoring. We're continuing with everyone's favorite Black Dragons. The Black Dragons are a curse-founding chapter of the Space Marines, rumored to descend from the Salamanders and created during the 21st founding, just before the Age of Apostate. Their notoriety stems not only from this tainted origin, but from their uniquely mutated gene seed, which produces bony crests on their heads and sharp protrusions along their forearms and elbows. Yeah, they look like goddamn unicorns.
He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die!
These mutations give rise to the dreaded Dragon Claws, specialized warriors who sharpen an adamantium coat their natural blades into terrifying close combat weapons. Some of the most extreme mutations even cause massive skeleton growths, forcing the chapter to craft custom power armor for their largest warriors. Despite the suspicion they often face from other chapters in the Inquisition, the Black Dragons embrace their mutations and wield them with deadly efficiency. Their traditions, such as the Rite of Bones, Fire and Claw, are integral into being a Black Dragon, cementing their reputation as one of the Imperium's most formidable and unpredictable forces. We now turn to the strongest candidates among them, examining the warriors who carry the legacy of the Salamander's blood tempered by this dark, twisted heritage. For them, unfortunately, we only have 2 possible candidates. For a chapter this popular, I am quite surprised that there are only 2 fellas to look at, but the Black Dragons really don't have a ton of lore, unfortunately, which is the story of my life with this video. Their 2 candidates are Captain Volos of the Second Company and Captain Zartaf, who, while technically now a salamander, I personally consider, by Cawl logic, him to still be a Black Dragon. Might as well start with him. Captain Zartaf is a former Black Dragons captain whose entire story reads like a testament to endurance and taking a bunch of nails in your ass. Captured by the cruel Drukhari, he was taken to the Volgoria Reef and forced to endure 6 standard years of merciless gladiatorial games, hunts, and torment.
That's rough, buddy.
Stripped of his freedom and forced into near constant combat, Zartaf's physical and mental resilience was pushed to the absolute limit. Despite the immense strain, he survived, retaining enough skill and cunning to eventually escape with the aid of the Salamander's Fire Drakes and Chaplain Osias. During this ordeal, Zartaf's feats include surviving the sadistic games and lethal hunts of the Drukhari, maintaining his combat proficiency under constant threat, and ultimately navigating his way to freedom. Then we have Captain Volos. Captain Volos is the current commander of the Black Dragon's Second Company, and sadly, one of the few figures from this chapter with actually recorded feats. He is best remembered for leading a campaign to purge the vile Drukhari of the desolate Psi Cabal aboard the Universe-class mass conveyor Absolution. With only 20 warriors under his command, Volos attempted not only to annihilate the Cabal, but also to liberate the human captives aboard the vessel. The most notable feat here is his duel with an Archon. But this is where things get real tricky with power scaling. Archons vary wildly in ability. Some rise to power through sheer martial dominance, other through cunning and backstabbing. While every Archon has access to some of the best war gear Common Raw can provide, they definitely scale below Orc war bosses or Astartes chapter masters. Without knowing more about him, it's hard to gauge how impressive Volos' duel really was. Yes, he survived clashing with a Dark Elder Archon, but the scale of that achievement remains pretty uncertain. So although this is a closer debate between some pretty meh feats, I have to crown Zartaf as the champion of the Black Dragons chapter. Surviving 6 long years in the Dark City, enduring constant gladiatorial battles, sadistic torture, and the twisted games of the Dark Elder is simply on another level. That durability overshadows Volos' single feat. And this is what makes the Black Dragons such an interesting chapter in my eyes. They're a chapter with almost no lore, yet they've built a strong fanbase. My hypothesis, the giant horns and bone growths sticking out of power armor just looks metal as hell. But what's even funnier about this chapter is their chapter master is just called the High Dragon. We don't even know his name. That's all we get. Peak disappointment there, fellas. Peak disappointment. Next on the Cow's list are the White Consuls. The White Consuls are a proud second founding chapter of the Ultramarines and one of the Astartes Precies, charged with guarding the Eye of Terra itself. Unusual among their brethren, they are led by 2 chapter masters, one overseeing their homeworld of Sabatine and the other commanding their fleets abroad. The White Consuls also openly embrace the Imperial cult, venerating the Emperor as a god. For millennium, they stood as steadfast defenders of the Imperium, fighting in campaigns such as the Gothic War and the 13th Black Crusade, until their legacy was nearly shattered when Chaos forces annihilated their homeworld during the Para Crusade. Though left broken, Guilliman himself sought their salvation, granting them Grey Shield reinforcements and a new homeworld to rebuild upon. With such a legacy of devotion, resilience, and tragedy, it's pretty gosh darn sad to say that 2 of the 3 candidates we'll be looking at today are dead. They are Chapter Master Titus Valens, Chapter Master Cymar Zedius, and Coadjutor Gaius Aquilius, known as the White Angel. First up, we have Titus Valens, one of the dual chapter masters of the White Consuls, serving as their battle master and the predecessor of Regent Arteminis, a thick-necked warrior whose massive frame was made even more imposing by the bulk of his Terminator armor. Valens embodied the image of a chapter master who led from the front. His greatest feat came at the Boris Gate, where he led the White Consuls against the Wordbearers. During the battle, Valens held the line against the traitors long enough for Imperial citizens and soldiers to escape, personally clashing with the demon-possessed Beerus Drakshal of the 34th Host. Though Valens was ultimately slain in that duel, the fact that he faced and withstood such a monstrosity, one empowered by both the warp and the blessings of chaos, cements him as definitely one of the stronger Marines from this chapter. Next is Cymar Zedius, and the other White Consul's dual chapter master, who reigned for nearly 12 centuries as the proconsul of their homeworld and its vassal systems. While Titus Valens led from the front, Cymar was the strategist and diplomat, overseeing the chapter's homeworld and its systems, and keeping constant vigilance against chaos incursions over the Eye of Terror. Yet his greatest and unfortunately final feat came during the invasion of Sabatine, as told in the Lords of Silence. Facing the combined assault of the Death Guard and Wordbearers, Cymar stood at the gates of the chapter's Gene Seed Vault, fighting for hours against traitor Astartes. Even after slaying scores of Plague Marines, his armor shattered and weapon broken, he still fought and refused to yield. His defiance culminated in a duel with Lord Vorax of the Lords of Silence, where despite exhaustion and overwhelming odds, Cymar battled the Death Guard champion with every last shred of his strength. Though he ultimately lost and was killed, his final stand shows how he is truly one tough son of a bitch. The dude was 1,200 years old, guys. 1,200 years old. Older than your grandpa, and still managed to go out like an absolute badass. Finally, we have Gaius Aquilius, known as the White Eagle, who serves as the 5th company captain of the White Consuls. As the beloved coadjutor of Boris Prime, alongside proconsul Cassius Austerus, he oversaw the defense of the world during the Battle of the Boris Gate, where both Wordbearers and Necron forces sought its destruction. During the fighting, the White Eagle was nearly assassinated by the Wordbearer Baristrak Shell. His life, though, was saved at the last moment by Chapter Master Titus Valens. Though the cost of the battle was staggering, Aquilius was one of only 3 Astartes to survive. So who's the strongest White Consul? Well, it's obviously not Gaius. While he's a solid leader and all around a great guy, his combat feats just don't measure up. So he is out. That leaves us with, oh boy, 2 deceased Chapter Masters, both of whom went out in spectacular fashion. Surprisingly, this one's actually pretty straightforward and easy as well. Titus Valens faced a demon-possessed Wordbearer, arguably a more individually powerful opponent, but Simar Zedius fought dozens of traitor marines protecting the gene-celled vaults, killing countless foes before finally confronting Vorax, and even then, he put up a tremendous fight before inevitably falling. Simar was one tough ancient warrior, and that earns him the crown as a champion of the White Consul's chapter. More broadly speaking, the White Consuls rival the Lamenters when it comes to bad luck. They lost over half their chapter, 6 companies fighting the Wordbearers in the Boris system, their fortress monastery was overrun, and their homeworld ultimately corrupted by Nurgle. Even worse, both of their chapter masters perished in these events, leaving the chapter as a fleet-based force searching for a new home. Rest in peace, my White Consuls. With the White Consuls covered, it's time to turn to the Dark Hunters, the first White Scar successor chapter we're covering. The Dark Hunters trace their lineage to the White Scars, though their precise founding remains murky. Records point to sometime around the turbulent era of M37. From their earliest days under Chapter Master Anganar, formerly a White Scars captain, they were forged in fire, cutting their teeth against demon engines and corrupted warlord titans at the Battle of Blood Steel. That trial left scars both literal and cultural, instilling in the chapter a lasting mistrust of machines and a tendency to fight with grim tenacity over reckless zeal. Over the millennium, they have earned a reputation for stubborn defiance, from defending their homeworld of Phobian against the Blind King's Titan warband in the Phobian War, where they brought down a warlord titan at the cost of over 400 brothers, to holding the gates of the Cathedral of the Emperor Ossified for 5 long years during the Delroyd campaign. Yet it is their obsession with the Chaos Warband, known as the Punishers, that defines much of their modern history. Their 825 M41 stand in the First Punisher War saw them reduced to a mere 200 warriors before being saved by allied chapters. While in the Second Punisher War, they achieved victory alongside the Eldar in a rare uneasy alliance, the Dark Hunters fight like predators backed into a corner, and though their ranks have been shattered more than once, their determination has made them one of the Imperium's most relentless, if haunted, chapters. So for a chapter that are downright haters of machines, including your local toaster, who are their champions? For the Dark Hunters, we have 3. Sergeant Mahran Nikin, Chaplain Huron, and Company Champion Thirsk. First is Brother Sergeant Akin of the Ansar Company, who served under Captain Mithrin during the Phobian War and proved himself a warrior of near legendary stature. Akin followed his captain in the desperate assault against the corrupted warlord-class titan that they had been tasked to destroy. The mission was suicidal by design, an armored god machine steeped in the warp and crawling with chaos warriors, traitor Astartes, and maddened cultists. Yet Akin fought his way through the impossible, carving a path step by bloody step up the Colossus machine. His defining feat came when he reached the Titan's crown and in an act of unmatched aura, beheaded its princeps, whom he believed to be the dreaded Blind King himself. Though Akin fell soon after, his name lives on as one of the Dark Hunter's greatest heroes. The sergeant who cut down the master of a god machine with nothing but his courage, steel, and a giant pair of testicles. Next is Chaplain Huron of the Dark Hunter's 4th Company, who was a warrior priest with a voice that could turn despair into fury and steel. His greatest feat came during the Delrod campaign when Huron led his command squad, the Conclave of Midnight, which is a pretty damn cool name, into a head-on clash with an orc warboss and his personal bodyguard. On the steps of the Cathedral of the Emperor Ossified, Huron faced a hulking brute in single combat and against all odds, cut him down. With the warboss slain, the wog broke, collapsing into a storm of blood and fire that secured the victory for the Dark Hunters. And our third and final candidate is Thirsk, champion of the Dark Hunters 4th Company, who is a warrior of rare skill and honor. He earned his renown as the representative of his chapter in the Rite of Blooding, an ancient contest in which the successors of the White Scars gather each year to pit their chosen champions against one another. Thirsk claimed victory in this brutal gauntlet, securing the right to serve a full standard year with the White Scars themselves. After this victory, he was attached to the Third Brotherhood under Corsaro Khan, and fought alongside the White Scars during the Damocles Gulf Crusade against the Tau. To fully grasp just how impressive Thirsk's achievement was, we need to first consider the Rite of Blooding itself. Similar to the Feast of Blades held by the Imperial Fists and their scions, the Rite of Blooding is a trial of arms and endurance. Champions from each successor chapter duel until a single victor remains, who then trains with the White Scars to absorb the teachings of the founders before returning to their home chapter. Though the rite is less documented than the Feast of Blades, its implications are clear. Thirsk had to best multiple champions from other chapters, all of them hardened warriors in their own right. That alone places him in elite company, and it gives us a strong basis to measure Thirsk's might against fellow Dark Hunter candidates like Akin and Huron. So who is the mightiest Dark Hunter? Honestly, all three of these guys have some pretty damn impressive feats. Akin fought his way through the corrupted bulk of a chaos-infested warlord titan, most likely carving through hordes of enemies alongside his squad before finally reaching the top and cutting the head off the Blind King himself. That's the kind of thing you expect from a saga, not a footnote in the lore. Huron, on the other hand, took an orc warboss in single combat during the Delroyd campaign and came out victorious. That's really no small feat either. Orc warbosses are absolute monsters. Their physical strength dwarfs that of even a fully armored space marine. They can flip tanks, rip apart enemies with their bare hands, and every victory only makes them stronger. By the time a warboss reaches that level, they're essentially a walking engine of destruction, and Huron personally put one down. And finally, we have Thirsk, who may not have a single dramatic kill like the other two, but his victory in the Rite of Blooding speaks volumes to his martial prowess. To win, he had to outfight multiple champions from other White Scar successors, each one a hardened veteran chosen as their chapter's very best. That means Thirsk is consistently stronger than other champions across multiple duels. So, who to pick? Who to pick? Let my cow brain turn for a second, folks. If I had to pick the champion of the Dark Hunters, I'd give it to Huron. While Akin's feat was legendary, he wasn't alone. His squad made that impossible climb with him. Thirsk's Rite of Blooding win is incredible, but it's less tangible since we don't exactly know the scale of the event, compared to other duels like the Feast of Blades. Huron, however, has a clean, undeniable record. He went toe-to-toe with an orc warboss, one of the deadliest enemies in the galaxy, and personally slew him. That's definitely the best feat amongst the three, and it earns him the title of the Dark Hunter's Mightiest. And now, my fellow cows, it's time for a poop break intermission, because we've officially hit the halfway point. How's everyone holding up? Still strapped in? Still sane? I hope part 2 has lived up to your expectations. I would like to remind the herd yet again, if this video hits 2,000 likes and 500 comments in 1 week, yes, I'm raising the goal like the coward I am. Get it? Get it? I'll shut up. Then I'll make part 3. So get typing, because we could turn this into a million-parter with the sheer number of chapters out there. Of course, it's only going to get harder and harder to find worthy candidates, and when we eventually do the final ranking for every single one we've picked, it's gonna be like a 6-hour-long video.
Oh my god! Wow!
For that video, you better bring the whole Chili's menu, because that's gonna be a test of endurance. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed your little bathroom break, because we've got 8 chapters and 1 gene-enhanced warrior left to cover. Up next are the Sons of Sanguinius, the Marines Malevolent, Mantis Warriors, Novamarines, Mortifactors, Iron Snakes, Dark Krakens, Silver Skulls, and Alpha Primus. So grab a carton of milk, a plate of freshly cooked cookies, and let's kick it off with the Sons of Sanguinius. The Sons of Sanguinius are a second founding chapter, created alongside the Flesh Terrors and the Blood Drinkers, and their gene seed hails directly from the Blood Angels 6th Company. True to their lineage, they are fierce, bloodthirsty zealots who revel in the opportunity to kill in their Primarch's name. Their entire culture is steeped in ritual and savagery. They shun librarians, view psychers as tools of chaos, and instead elevate chanting non-psycher librarians who inspire their brothers in battle with sacred verses. Their chaplains are drawn from the most grief-stricken sons who dream of Sanguinius' death, transforming their sorrow into a burning hatred for heretics. Most infamous of all is their ritual known as the Feast. Before major battles, a valiant brother is sacrificed and his blood consumed by the company from golden chalices to spread his courage and stave off the red thirst. These grim traditions give the sons of Sanguinius a fearsome, fanatical presence on the battlefield. When it comes to champions, the chapter only has one truly notable name in the records: Captain Damian Mordua, the commander of the 3rd Company. Mordua is a veteran of centuries of warfare, a ferocious warrior whose deeds are legendary amongst his brothers. His greatest feat came when he faced down a bloodthirster of Khorne in single combat. Yeah, the Greater Demon of Khorne. Though the Greater Demon eventually struck him down, dealing him grievous wounds, Mordua managed to wound the monster so severely that his company could finish the beast off with concentrated bolter fire, a staggering achievement given that bloodthirsters are some of the most terrifying entities in existence. Mordua recovered from his injuries as unbroken and savage as ever. Beyond this, he has led countless campaigns against Craftworld Eldar and Orcs. A veteran demon slayer, Xenos Butcher, and survivor of impossible battles, Captain Mordua stands as the one and only true champion of the Sons of Sanguinius. Next up are the absolute dickheads from the Marines Malevolent.
Yeah, you suck. Yeah, you just fucking suck.
The Marines Malevolent are a brutal and ruthless chapter, infamous for their aggressive tactics, high civilian casualties, and strained relations with other chapters, especially the Salamanders. Their exact founding is unknown, though it is believed to have occurred around M32, and their exact parent chapter remains a mystery. Notably, during the Third War for Armageddon, 2 of their companies bombarded an orc-occupied refugee camp with whirlwinds, killing thousands of civilians along with the Greenskins, earning the ire of both Imperial authorities and Allied Space Marines. Despite, or perhaps because of their brutality, the Marines Malevolent produce some of the most dangerous warriors in the Imperium. Now, let's meet their champions. Only 2 candidates make the list for the real meanies in yellow: Captain Vinyar and Balak, a veteran space marine of the first Vilifiers. We'll start with the big old meanie Vinyar, who probably has a horrifying KD after bombing civilians. Captain of the Marines Malevolent 2nd Company, Vinyar earned his reputation during the Third War for Armageddon, where he shelled the Emperor's Deliverance refugee camp at Hades Hive.
Well, we're fucked.
He was also behind the infamous Archimedes Rex incident. While his feats aren't well documented, he's mostly infamous for getting his butt handed to him by Tushan, chapter master of the Salamanders, after he killed an obscene amount of civilians who were collateral damage. Fuck you, Vinyar. Just fuck you, man. You suck. Next, we have Balak, whose name literally sounds like ballsack, a seasoned veteran of the Vilifiers Company. His most noteworthy feat is by dueling a Black Templar Sword Brethren Sergeant, Timod, over the gruesome trophy of a slain orc, claiming both the orc's head and Timod's armor and weapon after defeating him. This ignited a bitter feud with Timod's brother, Vorda, swearing revenge. Later, during a mission to rescue Imperial officers captured by orcs, Balak and his company were separated. During this separation, he was confronted by Vorda, who challenged him to a duel, only for the pair of them to be ambushed and captured by orcs themselves. In a daring escape, Balak and Vorda turned the tables on their orc captors, destroying several with detonated fuel tanks. Their rivalry, however, did not end there. Vorda ultimately betrayed Balak, stabbing him in the back and leaving him for dead amongst the corpses of the orcs. It's a perfect example of karma in action. These absolute jerks may be feared, but the lore makes it hilariously clear that being a dick rarely ends well. So who's their champion? Well, it's obviously Balak. He took on and defeated a Templar who are supposed to be some of the best duelists in 40k amongst the Loyalist chapters. Easy pick for these boys. The next chapter we're looking at are the Mantis Warriors. Let's see if these bug-themed bad boys have any worthy candidates. The Mantis Warriors are a chapter infamous for teetering on the brink of extinction, cursed for siding with traitors by accident, and getting absolutely dog-walked in that iconic Tyberos artwork. Believed to hail from the 8th founding in the mid-34th millennium, their gene seed comes from the White Scars Marauder line, and they've always had a habit of getting screwed over, most notably during the Babdab War, when siding with the rebel Astroclaws left them shunned, homeworld lost, and manpower critically depleted. Tasked with pennant crusades ever since, these isolated, highly autonomous Marines are known for their battle haze, a neurotoxic trance that turns them into near precognitive killing machines, though at the cost of tunnel vision and permanent physical changes. When it comes to champions, the Mantis Warriors are notoriously difficult to judge. Most of their key figures either vanish, die in brutal ambushes, or are rumored to be super powerful, but never actually get shown in action. Their 3 candidates are Chapter Master Yarvan Sartak, Chief Librarian Ahazanra Redith, and Captain Matris. Let's start with Chapter Master Yarvan Sartak. He was the chapter master of the Mantis Warriors before being killed in 906 M41 during the opening stages of the Babdab War. While under a truce on the World of Grief, the treacherous Lord Huron and his renegade Astral Claws launched a surprise attack, and both Sartak and Red Scorpion's chapter master, Ortes, were cut down before they could even react. So we'll truly never know how strong Sartak really was. But I felt like I should include him because the Mantis Warriors are not filled with a lot of cool characters or strong Marines, so I thought it'd be kinda interesting to throw in their most recent chapter master who got absolutely annihilated before the Babdab War even kicked off. Next is Chief Librarian Ahazra Redith, aka the Dust Prophet, the de facto leader of the chapter in the final days of the Babdab War. Redith is said to have been one of the greatest librarians in Mantis Warriors history. He is believed to have died defending the Tranquility II, though his body was never found. Like Sartak, his actual feats remain largely unseen, leaving only whispers of potential legendary power. And our third and final candidate is Captain Matris, the second company's fearless commander. Matris earns his place for having absolute balls of steel. Finally realizing Huron's fall to chaos, he turned the guns of his strike cruiser, the Tortured Soul, against the fleeing Astral Claws during the final Loyalist assault on Babdab Primaris. Charging into the maelstrom with guns blazing, he vanished along with his ship, never to be seen again. Matris is one of the few Mantis Warriors whose courage and initiative actually made a tangible impact. So of these 3, who would I gauge as the strongest Mantis Warrior? As none of them really have any true combat feats, I'm giving the crown to Ahazra Redith, the Chief Librarian of the chapter, giving him the title of the strongest Marine from the Mantis Warrior chapter. Here's my reasoning, guys. He's said to be one of the most powerful librarians in the chapter's history, and his story kinda proves it. Even as a boy, he was identified as a potent psyker, promoting his parents to take him on a perilous journey across the Valley of the Nine Winds to present him to the Mantis Warriors for judgment. Though too young to undergo full initiation, the chapter's librarians sensed his potential and began training his mind early, cultivating precognition and other psychic gifts that would mark him as a formidable force. While even his enhanced foresight couldn't prevent his chapter from being straight up boned at the conclusion of the Babdab War, he still outshines any other Mantis Warrior whose feats we know, because frankly, most of the rest didn't really do much of note. With the Mantis Warriors champions accounted for, it's time to move on to the Novamarines, a chapter with its own unique flair and notable deeds, and a few contenders who I hope will give our previous champions a run for their money. The Novamarines are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines, created to uphold the strictest adherence to the Codex Astartes. Founded under the guidance of Ultramar Captain Lutradius Corvo, the chapter inherited a fierce devotion to imperial orthodoxy and a brutal disdain for Xenos. Assigned the pre-imperial fortress world of Honorum, the Novamarines molded feral tribesmen into disciplined Astartes, preserving tribal tattoos as a sacred method of recording deeds and armoring their souls. Over the 41st millennium, they've played crucial roles in conflicts ranging from the Babdab War, where they served in a rapid response fire brigade capacity, to defending against Tau incursions, Orc invasions, and participating in the defense against the 13th Black Crusade. Their losses have been severe, most notably during the Plague Wars, but they continue to be a resilient and loyal chapter, now among the 10 shield chapters of Ultramar under Guilliman's restored Imperium. When it comes to champions, the Novamarines bring disciplined, battle-hardened veterans to the table. Our Novamarine candidates include Chapter Master Bardan Duvaro, Watch Captain Lyon, Primaris Interceptor Sergeant Justinian Paris, and Captain Lyonis. Before we dive into their feats, I know, we already covered the Death Watch in part 1, but this random Watch Captain, Lyon, is absolutely insane. Seriously, this guy deserves his own spotlight. With the candidates laid out, let's see what makes these Novamarines stand out in the ranks of the Emperor's finest. We're shaking things up and going in reverse order, so let's start with Captain Lyonis of the Novamarines. His greatest feat comes during the Korvar campaign, where he fought the Tau commander Swift Strike twice. The first fight he lost, but was spared, and their second encounter, Lyonis won, but he returned the favor, sparing her life. Now, to put this feat in perspective, Swift Strike isn't just any Tau. She's a commander, piloting a high-end battlesuit like the XV-8 Crisis or even experimental XV-22 stealth variant. These suits are heavily armored, packed with devastating weapons, and supported by drones, making their pilots extremely dangerous on the battlefield. Even more remarkable, this is the first time on this channel we've actually power scaled the Tau. It's kind of incredible that I've never touched on them before, but to be honest, I really don't care for them, like, at all. I think they're really stupid, and I'm probably gonna get hit on for this, but I don't think they even belong in this setting because they're literally just highly advanced blue people.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Have you seen the movie Avatar? That's them, except they're communist with big tech suits. That's pretty much it. Them and the squads are not fleshed out at all, and it really annoys the hell out of me. But still, a groundbreaking falling cow moment nonetheless. But back to Lyonis. The fact that he survived her attacks and later had the chance to kill her but chose restraint is remarkably impressive. Defeating a Tau commander is one of the tougher feats in the setting. Although they are not in the same league as a Demon Prince or greater demons, I would place a Tau commander in the same tier as an Orc Warboss or maybe even a Chapter Master. I'm a little hesitant about that one. I don't know if I want to say it's that far of a feat. Still, it's a pretty good feat for Lyonis. Next up is Justinian Paris, a Primaris Interceptor Sergeant who originally served in the Indominus Crusade as part of the Unnumbered Sons. After the Crusade ended, he was reassigned to the Novamarines, much to his disappointment, as he had hoped to join the Ultramarines. Despite the tension with his new superiors, he eventually trained with his squad and adapted on his own terms. Paris's most notable feat came during the Plague Wars at the assault on Lyax, where he fought the greater demon Kugaf alongside several other Novamarines. While not a single-handed takedown of a demon lord, surviving a direct encounter with one of Nurgle's strongest minions is no small accomplishment, and easily shows why he is a potential candidate. Our third candidate is Watch Captain Lyon, formerly a Primaris Interceptor of the Novamarines, now serving with the Watch Fortress Null Breach. Lyon quickly made a name for himself in the Death Watch, joining kill teams under Watch Captain Daxus to battle the Orcs of Calverna. His reputation grew so fast that the Orcs called him the Black Butcher, while his battle brothers dubbed him Orcsbane. Both titles well earned. Lyon's most notable feat came after Watch Captain Daxus was killed by a rampaging Squiggoth, a massive orc beast. Lyon single-handedly took it down with precise fire. These feats, earning 2 fearsome nicknames and taking down a gigantic orc monstrosity, show why Lyon is considered one of the deadliest orc hunters in the galaxy and a very surprising entry on this list. Finally, we have Chapter Master Bardan Duvaro, who led the Novamarines during the Indominus Crusade and the Plague Wars. His greatest feat comes during the defense of Starfort Galten during the Plague Wars. Duvaro faced one of his greatest challenges when the station was boarded by Typhus the Traveler and his Death Guard forces. As the Starfort's defenders concentrated on protecting the command center, Duvaro personally challenged Typhus. Initially, the Chapter Master seemed to have the upper hand, pushing Typhus back in the duel as their forces clashed around them. However, Typhus, host of the Destroyer Plague, a horrific hive of pestilent swarms, and a formidable psyker capable of summoning Nurgle's Rot and the Winds of Chaos, patiently waited for the perfect moment. When it came, Typhus fatally tore open Duvaro's chest with his Man Reaper. Though Duvaro fell, it was against Typhus, who, if you folks remember, I graded as the 4th strongest Space Marine from the Horus Heresy era, so I'm not exactly surprised Duvaro fell. Finally guys, we hit another successor chapter packed with heavy hitters. To recap, Captain Leonis went 1-for-1 against Tau Commander Swiftstrike. Justinian Paris fought and survived an encounter with Kugath, a greater demon of Nurgle. Watch Captain Leon earn his nickname by slaying orcs, including a giant Squiggoth meatball. And Chapter Master Bardan Duvaro dueled Typhus, holding his own for a brief, impressive moment. We can start by eliminating Justinian Paris. While surviving Kugath alongside other Marines is notable, it pales in comparison to the feats of the other candidates on this board. Next up is Captain Leonis. He defeated Tau Commander Swiftstrike once, but also ended up losing, going just 1-for-1, and would have died in the first round if not for being spared. That leaves Watch Captain Leon and Chapter Master Bardan Duvaro. Who to pick? Who to pick? Well, as much as I love Mr. Orcsbane, standing one-on-one with Typhus is on another level entirely. Duvaro held his own against a being that's basically low-key low Primarch tier. Yes, I said that. Typhus is capable of facing a Primarch briefly, thanks to the Destroyer Plague and his potent psychic abilities. If you don't believe me, go read Barry Dagger. Typhus in that book literally throws down with Mortarion and is able to hold his own for quite some time. God damn, that stinky boy is broken. Which makes Duvaro look even better in this fight, as a brief excerpt from that fight during Plague Wars describes him as with such prowess that Justinian thought Typhus would fall and the day would be won. He watched spellbound at the skill on display. So yeah, I'm giving it to Bardan Duvaro, former chapter master of the Novamarines. Rest in peace, King. You tried, but it's tough to beat a walking piece of shit. Next up, the Mortifactors, who meditate like monks before battle and then treat victory like a buffet. Blood, guts, and a side of skulls. The Mortifactors are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines, recruited from the feral, perpetually dark world of Pusol. Shaped by tribal warfare and their night-shrouded home, they follow the Codex Astartes, but maintain brutal local traditions from meditative trances before battle to, let's just say, very hands-on trophy collecting. Their fortress monastery, the Basilica Mortis, is pretty much a skull-themed Airbnb, and their Marines are trained to fight in near total darkness, making them some of the Imperium's deadliest nocturnal predators. For candidates, we have three choices: Chapter Master Magyar, Chaplain Gavador, and Chief Librarian Zendeo. Starting with Magyar, the ancient Chapter Master. He was at least 7 centuries old, decked out in bone-forged artificer armor, rocking crystal-braided silver hair, and a massive power scythe. Magyar was pure nightmare fuel. His greatest feat and final stand came when the Eldar invaded their home world. Despite his power and reputation, Magyar was beheaded by an Eldar Exarch, one who had already butchered 2 powerful Marines moments earlier, one of which had racked up 1,000 Tyranid kills the day prior. That's the kind of enemy you don't exactly feel bad losing to. Next is Chaplain Gavador, who fought during the Third War for Armageddon. Leading an assault alongside Titans and the Steel Legion, he squared up against an Orc warboss, an enemy we have previously scaled in the past, comparing them to base Astartes chapter masters. Gavador survived the fight, but here's the kinda weird thing about this one: he woke up later in the apothecary with no memory of the duel.
Huh?
Like, bro, how do you not remember whether you won or lost against an Orc warboss? Was this guy on too many drugs or something? Did he black out mid-fight and autopilot his way to victory? Or did the Orc just get bored and wander off? Either way, still impressive he lived, but kind of a strange flex. Finally, there's Chief Librarian Zendeo, whose only feat is surviving a psychic attack that killed all the other Mortifactor Librarians during the same Eldar assault. That's it. Surviving when everyone else dies is cool, but without more details, it's basically the participation trophy of feats. So who is the strongest Mortifactor? Of these three, we can easily eliminate Zendeo. We simply don't know his powers or how impressive he truly was, so I gotta eliminate him. So we're left with Gavador and Magyar. On one hand, Gavador fought and presumably killed a Orc warboss, which is a pretty high tier fight. On the other hand, Magyar clashed with an Eldar Exarch, who we know was strong enough to kill multiple elite marines in the same battle, including a guy with a body count well over 1,000 Tyranids. Even though Magyar fell, the level of opponent he faced was arguably higher than Gavador's. I think the edge has to go to Chapter Master Magyar. Losing your head to an Eldar Exarch who's on a murder streak is still more impressive than beating an Orc war boss and then waking up with no memory of it. Gavador lived, sure, but Magyar's fight was on another level. So I'm naming former Chapter Master Magyar the strongest Space Marine from the Mortifactors chapter. With the Mortifactors done, we now turn to the Iron Snakes, who were a highly voted chapter. I'm expecting lots of strong Space Marines from these boys. The Iron Snakes are a second founding chapter of the Ultramarines, founded by Captain Sar Damocles after the Heresy. Their duty is guarding the Reef Stars, a sector constantly raided by Dark Eldar and Orcs. They recruit from the world of Ithaca, an ocean world where every Marine carries a vial of seawater from their home to bless foreign soil. Their fortress monastery sits on Ithaca's moon, Carbidus, and their chapter is organized into legendary squads, named after their first commanders, each carrying centuries of honor and feats. The Iron Snakes have fought Dark Eldar for millennium, tricked a massive Orkwog into leaving the Reef Stars by planting a fake relic, big brain play, and contributing hundreds of warriors to campaigns like the Sabbat Worlds Crusade, where they slaughtered Chaos forces by the tens of thousands while barely taking any losses. And now it's time to look at the candidates who stand out amongst these Snake Boys. And after doing copious amounts of research, I have come to the conclusion that I am thoroughly disappointed with this chapter. You'd think with an entire series dedicated to them, plus a novel, 2 short stories, and a couple of novellas, they'd be stacked with legends. Right, guys? But nope. Of course, why would I ever get something nice? Anyway, we only have 2 candidates for the Iron Snakes chapter: Captain Priad and Chief Librarian Petrock. Let's start with Captain Priad, who is the main character from the Iron Snakes books and leads Damocles' squad through a string of missions, purging Dark Eldar on Bal Salak, battling Chaos forces on Rosetta and Cirrus, smashing cults and demons on Lorga, fighting orcs on Gondoric, and even serving alongside Saint Sabbat during the Sabbat World Crusades. Across these campaigns, he proved himself time and again, but his biggest feats were defeating a demon-possessed Space Marine captain in single combat, and later killing a Dark Eldar lord, 2 fights most Astartes would never walk away from. And then, on the other hand, we've got Petrock, the Chief Librarian of the chapter, who spends most of his time keeping the chapter from spiraling into ruin. He doesn't really have any standout combat feats outside of leading Damocles' squad into a brutal fight with the Dark Eldar, where they racked up a kill count well beyond 1,000 kills. He also had visions of the chapter master's death and personally intervened alongside Damocles' squad and the others to prevent it. His powers lean way more towards foresight and prophecy than straight up battlefield dominion. So I wouldn't really classify him as a battlefield combatant psyker, which makes it a pretty clear contest. Captain Priad takes the crown as the strongest Iron Snake. He defeated a Dark Eldar Lord, a demon-possessed Marine, and most importantly, he is the main character, making his plot armor simply too good. Next up, we've got the Dark Krakens, the second Salamander successor on this list. The Dark Krakens are Salamander's successor chapter hailing from the Ultima founding, the most recent wave of Space Marine chapters forged in the fires of the Indominus Crusade at the direct command of Rabute Gilliman. Born in the chaotic aftermath of the 13th Black Crusade, they're a relatively fresh face on the galactic stage. Despite their youth, they've already captured the community's imagination, boasting one of the coolest chapter names in the Imperium. Unfortunately, like so many of their Ultima founding brothers, they suffer from the curse of minimal lore. We know they exist, we know they've got salamander DNA in their veins, and that's about it. Tragic, because with a name like Dark Krakens, the potential for epic stories is practically built in. Still, I've managed to dredge up a champion for them, piecing together the scraps of canon and a dash of fan-favorite speculation. Their one and only champion is Purion Ure, a Primaris Lexicon currently serving in the Oxturus sector. Ure is a powerful psyker with a unique knack for wave calling. Basically, he can manipulate water and even control sea creatures, which is metal as hell and makes him the Aquaman of the 41st millennium. Unlike the rest of his brothers, he doesn't take part in their megafauna hunting traditions, choosing instead to paint his armor with symbols of every beast he can psychically bond with. Oh, and I forgot. During a librarian training ritual, Uore accidentally killed a fellow battle brother and was disfigured in the same ritual, so much that he never removes his helm. In battle, he wields the Force Sword Night Claimer, delivering precise, psychically enhanced strikes that cleave limbs and lop off heads. Sure, he doesn't have big flashy combat feats, but then again, nobody in this chapter really does, so he wins by default. He's basically a 40k version of a Pokemon trainer crossed with Mike Vick. Alright, that might have been too soon of a joke. But hey, my sanity's cracking from trying to find champions for these obscure chapters. So yes, Purion Ure takes the crown as the strongest Dark Kraken. Next up are the Silver Skulls. And don't worry, they're totally not just discount Iron Warriors. The Silver Skulls are an Ultramarine successor chapter created during the Second Founding in the aftermath of the Horse Heresy. Originally hailing from the world of Lyria, which they were forced to exterminatus to prevent Nurgle's corruption, they now call Varsavia their home in the Ultima Segmentum, near the Gildar Rift. The chapter patrols this treacherous region, fending off Xenos incursions and the forces of chaos, and has been named one of the 10 shield chapters of Ultramar. Despite this impressive track record, the Silver Skulls are shrouded in mystery. Their gene seed remains inconclusive, leaving the Inquisition and many others in the 40k community scratching their heads. Culturally, they're fierce, disciplined, and totally not Iron Warriors. Seriously, that could be anyone's Boldrin. They have a brutal, honor-bound approach to warfare, selecting the heads of their most formidable enemies, flensing their flesh, and coating the skulls in silver to display in their fortress monastery. Their warriors are tattooed in honor markings from head to toe, a rite of passage earned through battle. The chapter's librarians, called Prognosticars, serve as spiritual advisors and seers, giving their squads a strategic edge with divination and foresight. A touch of psychic spice to an already fearsome force. As for champions, the Silver Skulls have a few noteworthy candidates, thanks to their campaign history and the fact that their chapter is absolutely stuffed with librarians, or as they call them, Prognosticars. We have 5 candidates in total: Lord Commander Argentius, Captain Darius Arun, Prognosticar Brand, Prognosticar Lucius Glaive, and Chief Prognosticar Vashiro. We'll start with Lord Commander Argentius, who currently leads the Silver Skulls as their 27th chapter master. By tradition, every new master of the chapter takes the name Argentius after the very first. The current Argentius is believed to have once been Captain Atreus of the 6th Company, a decorated officer with a stellar battle record. Unfortunately, he's yet another example of a chapter master who has basically no lore beyond existing. Hot take, but maybe, just maybe, Games Workshop should let at least one chapter master do something epic on page. Just once, for me. Please, Games Workshop, I'm going insane. Next up, we've got Captain Darius Arun, Master of the Fleet and Captain of the 4th Battle Company. Arun was a mountain of a man, covered in ritual tattoos and the fact that he looked like someone carved Barbarian Nightmare into his face with a branding iron. Arun commanded from the battle barge Manifest Destiny and led the Silver Skulls campaign through the Gildar Rift, where he purged the Red Corsairs from Gildar Secundus. Unfortunately, his story ends when he got absolutely dunked on by Huron Blackheart, who straight up impaled him like it was nothing. Not the most flattering end, but hey, at least he went down swinging against a named Chaos Lord instead of slipping on the floor. Third, we have Arun's longtime companion, Prognosticar Brand, an aging but powerful psyker whose wisdom and foresight make him the perfect foil to Arun's impulsive style. Where Arun was all instinct and fury, Brand was measured, deliberate, and sharp as ever despite his years. His biggest feat came aboard the strike cruiser Dread Argent, where he defended the bridge against a chaos sorcerer named Tamar. Brand managed to outright kill the sorcerer, though he's gravely wounded in the process. That's a serious combat feat, and it shows he could back up his psychic foresight with steel and fire when needed. Fourth is Prognosticar Lucius Glaive, who cemented his reputation by taking down the champion of the demonic warband known as the Soul Maw. Glaive's duel with the Soul Maw's leader was absolutely one-sided. He obliterated the warband's champion, proving why he deserves a spot on this list. And finally, we come to the Silver Skulls Chief Librarian, or in their silly terms, Chief Prognosticar, better known by the title Vashiro, which translates to the one who sees. The current Vashiro has held the role for over 5 centuries, and while he doesn't have a lot of flashy battlefield feats, his psychic foresight is said to be almost unparalleled. So who is the mightiest Silver Skull? I think it's safe to eliminate Lord Commander Argentius and Vashiro, who don't have any recorded combat feats, but given their ranks, I have to say they're at least competent warriors. Argentius, as chapter master, wouldn't have risen to such a position without being deadly on the battlefield, while Vashiro, though a powerful librarian, seems to be more defined by passive or supportive feats rather than frontline combat. They're cool on paper, but sadly lacking in the kind of decisive showdowns we're looking for. We can next eliminate Captain Darius Arun, who was hyped as an absolute unit of a warrior only to get completely dog-walked by Huron Blackheart. And when I say dog-walked, I mean it wasn't even a close fight. That's a tough look, and it makes it hard to consider him a serious contender. That leaves us with two candidates, Prognosticar's Brand and Lucius Glaive. Both actually have proper feats under their belts. Brand defeated a Chaos Sorcerer, and Glaive took down a Chaos Champion. So as we've done throughout this video, it comes down to comparing their opponents, which enemy was more formidable, and how decisive was their victory. This brings us to Tamar. Tamar is a Chaos Sorcerer who clawed his way through the ranks of the Red Corsairs, murdering and scheming until he rose to become one of Huron Blackheart's champions. On top of that, Tamar wielded potent psychic powers, making him even more dangerous. Yet despite all of this, he ultimately met his end at the hands of Prognosticar Brand aboard the Dread Argent during the Red Corsairs' failed bid for the Gildar Rift. On the other hand, we have Lucius Glaive, who utterly destroyed an unnamed Chaos Champion. Now, a Chaos Champion isn't just some throwaway heretic. They're often blessed with gifts from their dark gods, whether that's mutations, enhanced strength, greater resilience, or even psychic abilities. Taking one down is a pretty damn good feat. But when you stack that against Tamar, I don't really think there's any contest here. Tamar was a Chaos Sorcerer. That means he combined all the physical prowess of a veteran trader with the deadly psychic abilities and dark resilience granted by the ruinous powers. Now, to be fair, Brand didn't walk away unscathed. He was heavily wounded in the fight, but even so, managing to slay a sorcerer warband champion of the Red Corsairs while injured scales far higher than simply putting down an unnamed Chaos Champion. When you put the two side by side, it's not hard to give the edge to Brand. Defeating a nameless champion is impressive, sure, but defeating Tamar, a powerful Chaos Sorcerer, is by far and away the greater feat here. So in the end, the title of the strongest Silver Skull goes to Prognosticar Brand. With the Silver Skull's strongest veterans assessed, it's time to turn our attention to the next contender, Alpha Primus, who is the prototype for all the Primara Space Marines. We'll be taking a deep dive into his powers, weapons, and combat feats, analyzing just how he stacks up before we wrap up this glorious part 2. Alpha Primus is the prototype for all Primera Space Marines and the personal agent of Archmagos Dominus Belisarius Cawl, created in an attempt to reverse engineer the Emperor's process for crafting the Primarchs. Alpha Primus failed as a Primarch level warrior, but became the foundation for the Primaris Marines. Unlike standard Primaris Astartes, he was genetically modified on an individual level, more akin to Adeptus Custodes than an ordinary Space Marine. This process granted him immense physical strength and durability, as well as potent psychic abilities far beyond any librarian in the Adeptus Astartes. However, the flawed engineering left him in constant physical pain, and he considers himself the personal property of Cawl, not a servant of the Emperor. Despite a lack of documented combat feats, Alpha Primus has over 10,000 years of real space operational experience, far surpassing most surviving Astartes, including Dante, who is 8,000 years his junior. While Alpha Primus may theoretically rival a Custodes in combat strength, it's impossible to quantify for certain. In terms of psychic ability, he is far beyond the average Astartes librarian, though in my cow opinion, this shouldn't be interpreted as surpassing elite psychers like Mephiston, Tigurus, or Kaldor Drago. It's safe to say he's exceptional, but within the context of the wider chapter in the Imperium, not unrivaled. And that does it for part 2. Oh my god, what another fun power scaling ride. Let's recap the champions I elected in this part 2. First, we have the Sights of the Emperor, Chapter Master Mensirius Thracian. From the Emperor's Spears, we had Primaris Lord of the Third Warhost, Brayak. From the Sons of Medusa, we had Iron Thane, Valen Cawl. Fourth was the Iron Knight, Captain and Company Champion, Cadulin. Fifth were the Red Scorpions, with Co-Chapter Master, Sire Karagon. After them were the Executioners, with High Chaplain and Lord Speaker of the Dead, Thulsul Kane. 7th were the Black Dragons with Captain Zartaf. 8th were the White Consuls with Chapter Master Seymour Zedius. 9th were the Dark Hunters with Chaplain Huron. Following them were the Sons of Sanguinius with Captain of the 3rd Company Damien Mordua. After them were the Marines Malevolent with Veteran Space Marine of the 1st Vilifiers Balak, which rhymes with, say with me folks, Ballsack. After them were the Mantis Warriors with Chief Librarian Ahazara Redith. Following them were the Novamarines with Chapter Master Bardan Duvaro. The Mortifactors were after them with Chapter Master Magyar. 4th to last were the Iron Snakes with Captain Priad. 3rd to last were the Dark Krakens with Primaris Lexicum Pareon Uore. After them were the Silver Skulls with Prognostiker Brand. Last but definitely not least is Alpha Primus, Cawl's Golden Boy. Holy cow, that's a lot of power scaling. With these champions elected, we're now at a total of 48. 30 from part 1 and 18 from part 2. This is shaping up to be one insane final ranking video. And guys, we haven't even touched the Chaos Warbands yet. Oh my god. Get ready, because things are about to go absolutely balls to my frickin' wall. Make sure you fill out your votes for your favorite Chaos Warbands to get a spotlight in the Chaos Warband video. For all my favorite cows out there, if this video hits 2,000 likes and 500 comments in just 1 week, I will do yet another part 3. Why? Because I feel like there are even cooler Marines out there, and we have just scratched the surface. A massive thank you to our incredible Patreon and YouTube members: Keydree, William Strong, Ryania Basket, Omar, Soft Use, and Ritter S. You guys are the lifeblood of this channel, and none of this would be possible without your support. If you guys haven't joined the Discord server yet, go check it out. Things are popping in Cow's Barnyard, and you guys don't want to miss the party. I'm still pretty up in the air what video I want to put out to end the month of September. I'm between 2 ideas. How powerful would the Dark King be? And what if Sukuna entered the 40k universe? I'm thinking of doing that video from more of a narrative standpoint, writing it more like a story rather than straight up power scaling. It'll be venturing into uncharted waters, so if you guys enjoy that, I'll probably expand more into anime and other sci-fi fictional universes, because there's a lot of power scaling out there. And if it doesn't, no biggie, I'll just come back to power scaling your favorite degenerate space babies. But whatever happens, I appreciate my herd, and I love each and every one of you guys. You guys are the best, and you make power scaling random space marines so much goddamn fun. As always, my favorite cows and cowettes, stay milked, and I'll see ya in the next video.